How close did the world come to catastrophe in the Pacific, without a single shot being fired? It began, as so many crises do, in apparent routine. A lone, silent blip appeared on a radar screen, flickering against the gray static off Kamchatka's wild northern coast. The shift was barely perceptible, a single anomaly in a sea of electronic noise. Yet this one small signal, overlooked by most, would soon unravel into a tense, invisible standoff between two of the world's most powerful navies. In those first few moments, no one could say if it was a harmless glitch, a drifting fishing vessel, or the opening move in something far more dangerous. The unidentified contact moved with an unsettling precision, its path breaking every familiar pattern known to Russian watch officers. Every minor course adjustment and subtle deviation from expected maritime behavior drew sharpened attention in the shadowed operations room. When the radar finally clarified, a chill settled into the air. An American destroyer, bristling with advanced armaments, had appeared just beyond Russia's maritime border, testing limits both physical and psychological. That single detection triggered a cascade of urgent decisions, reminiscent of the hair-trigger protocols from the height of the Cold War. The destroyer's unpredictable maneuvers sent ripples of suspicion through the Russian command structure. Was this clandestine surveillance, a routine patrol, or a deliberate provocation meant to probe their resolve? Each scenario carried its own grave risks. As suspicion deepened, the Russian Pacific Fleet surged into high alert, mobilizing vessels and aircraft with silent efficiency. Across the divide of cold water, the American crew watched and waited, cloaked in the discipline of protocol and the ambiguity of plausible deniability. The confrontation was silent, but the stakes were enormous. The world's attention never turned to this isolated stretch of ocean, yet beneath the surface, a deadly serious game was unfolding, a test of nerves conducted through satellites, encrypted signals, and coded transmissions. Most would never learn of it, but the risk was immediate and real. A single misreading, a lone mistake, could have triggered a chain reaction, escalation to open conflict, disruption of global shipping, or even a crisis that might draw in nations far from the Pacific's edge. This was more than a contest of ships and sailors. It was a chilling demonstration of how, in the modern era, peace depends on restraint, readiness, and silent communication between adversaries. The balance of stability hung by a slender thread, its fate decided by those willing to wait, to watch, and to signal strength without a word. What happened next would expose the razor-thin margin separating calm from catastrophe, a lesson for anyone who depends on the invisible order that keeps the world steady. In the hours that followed, both navies would push their strategies to the edge, each searching for advantage without betraying their intentions. But behind every maneuver, a deeper question loomed. How many times had the world come this close to disaster, unseen and unreported? Dawn broke quietly over Russia's far eastern coast, painting Kamchatka Bay in cold blue light. By mid-morning, that calm had fractured. Inside the Pacific Fleet's operations center, radar screens pulsed with new data. An unfamiliar vessel hovered at the edge of neutral Pacific waters. Its outline suggested a merchant ship, but its erratic course, zigzagging, slowing, accelerating, raised instant suspicion. No electronic ID flashed, no transponder broadcast. Officers exchanged tight glances. Within moments, a rapid analysis of radar echoes and satellite feeds swept away doubt. The ship's sharp silhouette and calculated maneuvers betrayed its true nature. An American Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, among the world's most advanced warships, running dark just 35 nautical miles from Russian shores. On the Vilyuchinsk base, routine evaporated. Sirens cut through the early haze. High alert. Duty crews mobilized. Radar stations doubled their watch. Aircraft crews rushed to their posts, prepping reconnaissance flights. Every sensor and secure line was checked, then checked again. The day's calm gave way to a familiar, suffocating tension. Beyond the wire, coastal villagers noticed the shift. Military jets, their shapes sharp against the sky, swept low over the sea, engines howling. Rumors raced online, a drill, a spy ship, Maybe something far bigger. In chat rooms and public feeds, speculation spun into anxiety. The official channels stayed silent, but the sudden military activity sent a message. Something grave was unfolding offshore. Interceptor jets and patrol planes began their circuits, hugging the coastline, a warning written in contrails and steel. Yet within sealed command rooms, caution ruled. One rash order could spark disaster. Too assertive, and the standoff might escalate. Too hesitant, and Russian sovereignty would be tested. For the officers on watch, every decision was loaded. Misidentify the ship, and risk humiliation or worse. Overreact, and the world might wake to headlines of conflict. Each move became a calculation. How to signal resolve, without crossing the invisible line that separated vigilance from provocation. But deeper questions churned beneath the surface. Why would an American destroyer edge so close, courting danger in contested waters? What message was the U.S. Navy sending, and what reply would Russia deliver in this silent, high-stakes duel at sea? Behind every radar sweep and coded transmission, the game of signals and countermoves accelerated. As the day unfolded, neither side could predict just how far the crisis might spiral. As the Pacific night deepens, the real game unfolds. Every move a message, every silence a test. The American destroyer traces a jagged route just shy of Russian territorial waters. Its path is restless, never steady for more than a few minutes. Sometimes it nearly halts, drifting so close to the invisible boundary that tension rises with every altered heading. Each maneuver is deliberate, a calculated probe for weaknesses, a silent question. How far can we go before you react? Above, Russian patrol aircraft draw wide, looping arcs over black water. On the surface, corvettes and frigates shift positions, their radars painting the sea with invisible light. Radios stay eerily quiet, but on every deck, sailors know this night is being recorded, every decision analyzed in real time and for years to come. Then, a flicker, new electronic blips on Russian screens. Analysts note the telltale signatures of reconnaissance drones, briefly launched and retrieved from the American destroyer. These are not routine flights. They are the coded whispers of modern espionage. Even a single fleeting signal could be a warning or a dare. Tension spikes. The destroyer powers up its targeting sensors, setting off alerts deep within Russian command posts. Red lights glow in bunkers as the American ship glides toward the edge of the exclusive economic zone, a line defined by treaties, but enforced by nerves. Russian officers issue the order, combat alert. Fingers tighten over controls. The next mistake could be irreversible. A Russian anti-submarine vessel responds, ghosting into the patrol zone under total radio silence. No warnings are broadcast. Engines hum beneath the waves. Sonar pulses echo and fade. Each side listens, calculates and waits, knowing the smallest misstep could shatter the calm. No shots are fired. No ship crosses the line. Yet every shift, every alert, becomes its own declaration. We are ready, but we will not be the first to escalate. The display is one of strength, but also of discipline, the acknowledgement that the cost of a single wrong move would be shared by all. Every moment is loaded with consequence. A hesitation, a mistranslated maneuver, or the malfunction of a single radar could ignite disaster. In this darkness, peace is stretched taut, a fragile balance held by willpower, readiness, and the hope that tonight, restraint will hold. As dawn approaches, the standoff enters its most unpredictable phase. Both sides must now decide how to end the game without losing face, or starting a war. Beneath the swirling fog and restless waves off Kamchatka, a new kind of conflict unfolds, one shrouded from public view, yet with consequences that stretch far beyond the horizon. For several tense hours, satellites capture a fleeting shadow in the ocean's depths. An American submarine, unmistakable in outline for those who know where to look, trailing the Russian destroyer. This is no ordinary patrol. Each frame hints at a deeper, invisible contest, a test of sensors, codes, and ironclad discipline, rather than brute firepower. Inside military command centers across the world, analysts debate. Was this merely routine, or a deliberate challenge to Russian resolve? Every interpretation peels back another layer of the silent chess match unfolding far below the surface, where each move and countermove risks tipping the balance from cold vigilance to open crisis. Moscow responds with precision, not bluster. Patrols double in number and sweep broader arcs through contested waters. Electronic warfare teams flood the spectrum with static, masked signals and encrypted bursts, messages only the most seasoned operators can decipher. Radars scan and rescan, probing for hidden threats, while coded calls flicker across the airwaves, saying everything without uttering a word. Despite this surge, escalation is tightly controlled. Both navies maneuver with calculated restraint, adhering to the letter of international law. Every action is legal, barely, but the intentions are clear as day to those watching. The rules hold, yet the warning is unmistakable. The margin for error is vanishingly thin. Diplomatic channels remain conspicuously silent. Official statements are brief, laden with ambiguity. Leaders speak in code, promising vigilance and calm, but their words ring hollow for a public now anxious about dangers lurking just beyond their shores. Then, a new twist. A second American warship appears on the scene, its arrival tracked by both radar and rumor. Surveillance intensifies along the Pacific Rim. The region becomes a psychological battleground, where victory is not measured by firepower, but by nerve. By who signals weakness first, who hesitates, or who fumbles in the dark. With each passing hour, the world's attention strays, but the risks only grow. These invisible confrontations threaten to blur the line between peace and catastrophe. What is truly at stake is not only national pride, but the stability of global commerce, the safety of ordinary people, and the fragile equilibrium that keeps calamity at bay. As tensions tighten, both navies brace for the unpredictable. The world watches, barely aware, as the next move could tilt the balance beyond repair. In the new great game, victory belongs not to the loudest, but to the last to break the silence. Modern power struggles hinge as much on what is withheld as on what is declared. Off Kamchatka's coast, two navies circled each other for nearly 48 hours. Their intentions flickered behind encrypted signals, radar sweeps, and a choreography of restraint. Each shift in course, every coded radio transmission, was both a test and a taunt. Will you cross the line first? No missiles flew, yet both sides pressed relentlessly, probing the edges of the other's technology and composure. This was not a contest over territory or glory, but a contest of nerves, an unblinking stare in the fog of uncertainty. Russia's response was a study in patience. Rather than meet American maneuvers with escalation, their crews matched every move with calculated vigilance, proving that discipline can outweigh bravado. The American destroyer, in turn, advanced and retreated with surgical precision, intent on mapping the boundaries without tipping over them. Yet the ripples extended far beyond the steel hulls and polished decks. Fishermen altered their routes, wary of sudden exclusion zones. Coastal villages watched the horizon, radios tuned for news that might shatter the calm. Local economies braced, trade routes paused, and day-to-day life grew tense as the world held its breath. While headlines blared about ships and jets, the true battle unfolded in the shadows, words and silence as weapons. Every diplomatic statement, every press release was crafted to conceal motives and shape perceptions, turning information into ammunition. In this new theater, the control of narrative is as critical as any missile launch. This incident redraws the map for future standoffs in the Pacific. The victors will not be those who fire first, but those who master endurance, information, and electronic warfare. The age of open battle is waning. Now, the quietest moves carry the greatest weight. For those watching from afar, the lesson is simple but urgent. Learn to read between the lines. The real dangers are often hidden, emerging as sudden shocks or as slow, invisible shifts that quietly remake the world. The stakes extend far beyond generals and diplomats. They reach into every life that relies on peace, stability, and the uninterrupted flow of trade. As radar echoes fade and the ships slide back into the mist, the world is left with a single, silent question. What will happen when the next silent standoff erupts? Will anyone recognize the warning signs in time? The answer may shape not just the Pacific, but the fate of the world. History's most decisive moments are often written in silence. Will you spot the next signal before it erupts across tomorrow's headlines? In those tense 48 hours off Kamchatka, not a single shot shattered the mist. Yet the world drifted closer to catastrophe than most will ever realize. Beneath bland statements and cautious headlines, a different language echoed, the language of silent readiness, veiled challenges, and barely detectable warnings pulsing through radar sweeps, coded commands, and precise maneuvers. This is the new reality of power, methodical, shrouded, and hiding in plain sight. Miss these patterns, and you risk mistaking quiet for safety, never seeing how quickly routine can morph into crisis. Today, the line separating patrol from provocation is razor thin, and every ignored signal sharpens the danger. What hangs in the balance is not just remote geopolitics. It is the stability of global markets, the safety of shipping routes, the predictability of our daily routines. A single misread gesture or overlooked provocation could unleash consequences that ripple far beyond Kamchatka's fog, reaching into homes, businesses, and lives around the world. So next time you see a quiet headline about a vessel, a flyby, or an incident at sea, pause for a second look. Behind every silence, a new story is forming. Its outcome shaped by vigilance and the ability to see what others ignore. If you hope to understand how these silent confrontations shape tomorrow's reality, stay alert. The game is still unfolding, and the stakes climb higher with every unheeded sign. But to truly grasp the magnitude of what almost happened, we must look beyond the specifics of Kamchatka and consider the global context. After all, this was not the first time that world powers have danced so close to the brink. Consider October of 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis. In that infamous standoff, American and Soviet naval vessels shadowed each other in the Caribbean, waiting for a signal, a misstep, a command. For over 13 days, the world teetered on the edge of nuclear war, with President John F. Kennedy and Premier Nikita Khrushchev exchanging messages that could have meant life or death for millions. The lessons from that crisis, restraint, communication, and the vital need for back-channel negotiation, echo powerfully in every modern standoff, including the one off Kamchatka. Or take the Able Archer exercise in 1983, a NATO wargame that, due to its realism, convinced Soviet leaders that a first strike might be imminent. Soviet forces prepared for war, and only a series of calm, measured decisions prevented catastrophe. These historical parallels reveal a sobering truth. The greatest threats are often invisible, and humanity's fate can hinge on the calmest heads in the most shadowed rooms. Fast forward to 21st century flashpoints, such as the South China Sea. There, Chinese, American, and Southeast Asian vessels regularly engage in high-stakes, gray zone maneuvers, close passes, radar jamming, and the shadowing of submarines. In 2018, a Chinese warship came within yards of colliding with an American destroyer. Only careful seamanship and disciplined restraint prevented escalation. These incidents, while rarely making front-page news, have the potential to disrupt the global order overnight. So what practical steps can be taken to reduce the risk of such silent confrontations spiraling out of control? First, there must be robust, direct communication channels between military commands. The so-called red phone of the Cold War era, or its modern equivalents, secure satellite links, encrypted messaging between fleet commanders, must be maintained and tested. Seconds matter when decisions are made in the dark. Second, both sides must invest in training that emphasizes restraint, identification, and de-escalation. Sailors and airmen should drill on not only the technical procedures of their craft, but also the psychological readiness to interpret ambiguous signals calmly. History is filled with examples, such as the shootdown of Korean Airlines Flight 007 in 1983, where lack of clarity and heightened nerves led to tragedy. Third, transparency and agreed protocols are vital. The United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, as well as bilateral agreements on encounters at sea, provide frameworks for safe conduct. These must be updated regularly, and both parties must trust that violations will be taken seriously. Confidence-building measures, like mutual notifications of exercises or the presence of observers, can lower the temperature during tense moments. Fourth, governments and the public alike should cultivate a habit of critical inquiry. Remember, not every incident makes headlines, and official statements are often crafted to conceal as much as they reveal. By learning to ask probing questions and seek out diverse sources, citizens can better understand the stakes and pressures faced by those on the front lines of diplomacy and defense. Finally, we must acknowledge that technology, satellites, drones, cyber tools, has made the game both more complex and more perilous. Automated warning systems, artificial intelligence-driven analysis, and real-time data sharing can prevent confusion, but they also raise the risk of escalation if misinterpreted. The human factor remains irreplaceable: wisdom, patience, and the courage to wait for clarity before acting. Imagine a scenario. It is midnight in the control room of a Russian frigate. The officer of the watch receives an alert. An unidentified aircraft is approaching at high speed. Protocol demands a challenge, but radio frequencies are jammed. Is it a reconnaissance drone, a lost civilian plane, or a feint for something more sinister? The decision must be made in seconds. The wrong call could mean war. The right call could mean the difference between a line in a logbook and a headline that shakes the world. Or picture the bridge of an American destroyer, its crew scrutinizing radar returns as they skirt the edge of another nation's exclusive economic zone. The commander knows that a single step too far could be interpreted as invasion. He weighs the benefits of gathering intelligence against the cost of provoking a response. Every instruction he gives, every word he withholds, could shape the course of history. Now take a broader view. In the age of global trade, a single naval incident can send ripples through supply chains from Shanghai to San Francisco. Recall how, in 2021, the mere blockage of the Suez Canal by a stranded ship for less than 1 week caused billions of dollars in losses, delayed countless shipments, and raised prices worldwide. A military standoff, even without shots fired, can have similar disruptive power if it closes a choke point or triggers a market panic. The lesson is clear. The silent brinkmanship off Kamchatka was not an isolated event, but part of a recurring pattern in international relations. The world's oceans are the arteries of commerce and communication, and their security depends on the invisible discipline of those who patrol them. In the end, it is not just admirals and presidents who bear the burden of these decisions. Every consumer who checks the price of food, every business owner waiting on a shipment, every citizen who relies on stability and peace is a stakeholder in this silent game. Our lives are more closely tied to the calm or chaos of faraway waters than we often realize. So what can you do, as a viewer, to stay informed and prepared? Start by cultivating awareness. When you hear of a naval incident, do not dismiss it as a distant problem. Ask, what are the possible consequences? Who stands to gain or lose? How might it affect the flow of goods, the stability of alliances, or even the mood of markets? Next, support transparency and dialogue. Encourage leaders to maintain open lines of communication and to invest in the training and protocols that keep mistakes from becoming disasters. If you are in a position of influence, whether in government, business, or media, insist on clarity and accountability in how such incidents are reported and managed. And finally, remember that the greatest dangers often come not from loud events, but from the quiet accumulation of tension, misperception, and routine. As history shows, the difference between peace and catastrophe can be measured in seconds, in meters, in the unspoken decisions of individuals under pressure. As the ships off Kamchatka finally withdrew, As radars settled back into their usual rhythms, the world exhaled, unaware of just how close it had come to disaster. But the lesson remains, echoing through every empty sea lane and silent command room. Vigilance is the price of peace, and the ability to read the quiet signals of conflict may be our best hope for a safe tomorrow. So, stay alert. The game is still unfolding, the stakes are rising, and the next silent standoff may already be forming, just beyond the horizon.